Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. I'm Kat, your host, episode 78, with a very exciting guest. I have to say, it makes me reflect a little bit. When I was putting the show together, I created a dream list, mostly filled with artists that I just didn't know and certainly didn't know me. Just kind of set aside for one day. And my guest today is from that list. So one day is here. And I'm really excited to bring her to you. She is a badass bass player in the Kenny Chesney band. And I'm just really excited to bring this one to you. She's inspiring, she's smart, she is honest and vulnerable. And I felt a lot of kinship with her in the way that she approaches life and just day to day. She's so fun to watch. I love powerful women. I love having them on the show. I feel so inspired by them and energized. So I'm sure you will too. And without further ado, I'm just going to let you have her. Harmoni Kelley, here she is. I'm so happy to welcome you, Harmoni Kelley, badass bass player, and then some extraordinaire. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting. I love this. It's funny because we've only met one time, I think. So,
Yeah,
but I started hearing your name, around town because you've interviewed all of my friends and peers and colleagues, and so
yeah.
yeah,
It's funny how that happens where, yeah, we got introduced upstairs at Continental Club
yeah.
and I knew who you were. And I think you were like, yeah, I think I know that show. And it was like, okay, you are a dream guest of mine.
Oh,
I really do mean that. And I'll tell you why. A couple years ago, I think at this point, I was hanging out with Tony and Miles from Fastball and they were doing a new record. And I was in the studio with them for like a weekend when they were recording it.
yeah.
And I just remember them going, yeah, we could get Harmony on this. And I was like, ooh, who's Harmony? And like, ooh, what's she gonna do? And then and that was the first moment that I learned about the famous Harmony and like having you sit in and play on people and then learning about who you are and the people you've played with. I still never really knew that much about you, but your reputation preceded you in such a beautiful way. And I was like, I love music. I love this whole industry and I love the community, but I also really love it when it's a woman and that, when it's like a bunch of dudes really wanting you to play on their record, I think is even cooler.
I'm flattered to hear that. I did go in and record
You
uh,
did.
on that record with them. I think I did. I maybe ended up being recording like two or three songs on that record,
I
and then
think you
Bruce
did.
came in and did some other songs on that record. So I love those guys. This is funny enough. I sort of virtually met Tony on Myspace, like in 2006, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Really, really long time ago. But he had just put out a solo record, and I certainly knew who Fastball was. And I think I just reached out to him on MySpace and said, like, "Hey, man, I really like your tunes a lot, and I don't know if I know you play bass, but I don't know if you ever need a bass player." And he wrote me back, and then suddenly, I was playing in Tony Scalzo's solo band and which was really really fun. And then shortly after that I ended up playing with Fastball because Tony played bass in Fastball originally, and then they kind of mixed it up, and at some point he would play guitar and then he would go back to keys. And so I was kind of out there for a fun period playing bass with those guys, and it was wonderful. I've always loved their music. I think they're
Mhm.
super talented and great writers, and
They are
yeah, they have a knack for writing some killer melodies. So
super catchy. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. They're good at that. Little stinkers. So there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but let's lay down a little bit of the beginning because you told me that you're self-taught.
yeah,
Um, and that is awesome. And I feel a little bit reading kind of your a little bit of your background, I'm getting a sense of how you approach things, and it's kind of the same as me. So I'm loving that, where it's just like, I mean, on one hand, you're so good at what you do and you're technically so proficient and you're so professional, and obviously your reputation stands right beside that. But also I love the fact that you're self-taught, and I love the fact that you at one point uh figured out that you would just like, let's just do it. You know what I mean? Talk a little bit about that time in your life where you were like, you felt like you were good enough or knew it enough to then like start playing with people.
It's such a funny thing to think back on because at some point in my 20s, there was this, I don't even really quite remember how it specifically started, but I do recall that there was sort of this snowball action that started to happen. But I started what I would consider late, in
Mhm.
terms of, on the scope of what age most people start playing instruments, which is, I don't know, 8,
Mhm.
12, something like that. I started when I was 17, and I picked up the bass, and it's all I have ever played. I started with it and I still play it. And my dad has always played guitar, and he was in a couple of bands back in Shreveport, where I was born in Shreveport, and that's kind of where my dad grew up. My parents grew up, and so my dad played a lot. And when we moved to Austin, he continued to play, and he's always written songs and played guitar around the house. And I think at some point, my first experience playing in a band was with my dad on stage,
Oh.
which was really cool. And I didn't, I was super nervous, and I used to be very, I'm still this way in a lot of ways, but music, it's softened quite a bit. But I used to be very, I need to know what the plan is, and I want to know
Mhm.
the songs, and I need to know what's happening in the songs and what the set list is. And, I can't have any surprises because I just never wanted to look foolish on stage, and
Mhm.
as you get older as a musician, you realize that, that's part of the fun. Is having the ability to just really not care anymore, and to just dive in and or get thrown into the deep end, which is what happened to me a bunch of times, and player, because of that. But yeah, I was on stage with my dad. I think we were playing at the Green Mesquite barbecue here in Austin. And he had a band with just a couple guys. I don't even know if there might have been a drummer at that point, but it was just singer songwriter, folky kind of bluegrass type stuff. And that was my first taste at sort of getting a sense of how bands work, and how does it work on stage, and what does it mean when someone solos, and what are they soloing over, and what happens after the solo if
Mhm.
somebody throws it to somebody else for a solo, and like, what does that mean to just sort of go with the flow, on that, and what happens if somebody calls a song that I don't know, and I can't just walk off stage and say I'm not playing that because I don't know the song. And so that was kind of my first taste at learning what it was like to be in a band, in like a live band situation. And um, I played in a band in high school, and then, I guess kind of early on in my 20s, I remember I was working as a temp at what used to be, it's called TNRCC, which was Texas Natural Resource Conservation Commission. That's such a mouthful. And through working there as a temp, I met this drummer, and then John and I ended up starting a band with these other guys that he was already kind of playing with. And so that was kind of the first really, like, this is a real band. And we recorded a record, and
Wow.
we did that. And I don't know, it just, I kind of started to understand what that felt like to play with people. And yeah, typically I was the only female in a lot of those situations. And I didn't it didn't occur to me as being strange at that time. And it was like I got so used to that as being a thing. It's just like you're jumping in a van or jumping on a bus with a bunch of guys, and you're gonna go play gigs and load gear and load out at 2 a.m. or whatever. So that just kind of became the norm. But yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. And then it suddenly I was just like, yeah, meeting Tony on MySpace and playing with him and playing with Fastball and then playing with John D. Graham here in Austin. And I learned, I mean, that was what I mentioned earlier about being thrown into the deep end of the pool. He was sort of like my guru from that perspective because, boy, he took so much joy in just pushing me right off into the deep end. And it was the greatest thing that anybody could have ever done for me, you know.
Yeah.
Told me I'll never forget. I always say this all the time that the first gig I went uh to with him, he I had like a little note, you know, with the song names because I my friend John Chipman was playing drums and he just gave me a box full of CDs and he was like, "Here are the songs. I don't really know what we're playing, so you know, just we'll wing it. You're gonna be great, kid." And I was like, "Oh, God, really?" And so I was like, I learned all the songs and tried to make everything fit on 2 pages with like note like chord notes on there and just if there's a bridge in this song maybe I'll write that down or whatever. And I can't remember where we were playing, but John D came over. It was my first time meeting him. We're playing this outdoor show and he looked down at my notes on the floor and he looked at me and he just reached down and he just ripped him off the stage. And it was kind of like, you won't be needing those where we're going. The most loving, like, it wasn't like, what are you doing with those notes on my stage? It was like,
Like, no.
you can do this and you don't need those and you're going to be fine. Like, we're about to take a journey and let's just have fun. And he used to tell me, like, I don't care if you make a mistake. I really don't care if you make a mistake. Just make it loud. And I was like, oh, like
Oh,
that was my lesson in like play with conviction and play
yeah.
with courage. And who cares if you make a mistake? At least you're going for it, and
Yeah.
something different and new. And so I really learned a lot from him, which ended up serving me well for playing with like people like Bob Schneider, who also his list of songs is hundreds and hundreds because he does this songwriting game. And so every
Right.
week he's adding a new potential song into, the non set list. And you
Yeah.
just have to get used to what they are. And he doesn't, there's no set list and he doesn't even usually say, hey, let's play this. He'll just start strumming and I'm looking at the rest of the band and we're like, I like, we'll feel it out and see what's going to happen, so yeah, that I got used to that feeling of like the unknown and just sort of being comfortable within that, because I wasn't ever that way as a musician when I started. I was so nervous about playing the right thing and I didn't want to look foolish. I didn't want to make a mistake and so
Yeah. I was thinking, like, what a pendulum swing in your professional life musically to have to go from that place of just being really like wanting to have control, essentially, is what it is, to really learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I have to ask, does that translate into life at all? Because it sounds like a lot of that can be metaphorical for just life too, of like, how we humans approach life. It feels really good to have a sense of control, even though ultimately we don't. Do you find that that's kind of, permeated into just how you approach life outside of being on the stage?
no. I I wish that were
You
the
go.
case. Yeah, it's weird. Like music is the one place where I have sort of become. I mean, I like to show up for gigs, and as a side musician, it's kind of we live our lives, and our whole career is made up of charting songs for the next artist that we're going to play for, and you're just like constantly learning and working on stuff like that. And so I spend a lot of time learning songs for different bands. So I do like to show up prepared, and I'm very organized, and I like to do my homework and be creative and spontaneous within that, But um,
Mhm.
gosh, I wish that my life was at this place where I was like, oh, I used to be such a control freak, but now you know what, I've really let all that go. And that it's just, yeah, it's not, you know, and I think
Yeah.
I unfortunately lost my mom when I was 19, and
Mm,
so that sort of sent my life into this downward spiral of being very, very much out of control,
mm,
and sort of I was kind of on my own for a bit because my dad was raising my two much younger brothers, and it was just this sort of chaotic thing, and so I became very good at you know, putting everything into a box, and being very organized, and very I got almost like type A. It's a wonder that I ever became a musician, and like not like a tax accountant or CPA or something, because I'm just so, you know, I like spreadsheets, and I like lists, and I like to mark things off of the list, and post notes. You should see the wall that I have over here with all my things, post-it notes. And so that still exists in my day to day. But I'm happy that music is sort of, that's my place where I kind of get to just sort of, you know, let go of all of that, you know.
yeah. I feel I still am tracking a kinship with you because that's called hypervigilance. And that's exactly where we stay. And I'm very, very similar to you. I do create, just like you, I've created outlets for myself where I can have that space, because you gotta, like, the steam's gotta come out of the pot, right? And preferably it's creative steam, not like,
Right.
anger or
Yeah.
sadness or whatever, you know what I mean? So good for you though, to really create that and manifest that life for yourself so that you can, have an outlet. And you've done such a beautiful job doing it. You really, and what's so crazy and ironic is you come across like, I always love how people occur. Like when you walk into a room, like the first thing you think about, like, I think I love that idea. It's important to know that for yourself, but you really do come across as someone who is very carefree and kind of like, just like, yeah, go with the flow.
I'm,
Really good at what she does, but also just like, that's how you come across, to me at least. Like pure power, but like, like just relaxed power, I guess is how I
good. I love that. You know, my boyfriend, his term for me is joyful badass.
think. Yes.
I just adore, and no one's ever, you know, said those words. And so I went, oh, wow, that's really great, because I do, you know,
Yeah.
I'm very much, even within all that sort of the rigidity of needing to know, and being prepared, and being organized, and all that stuff. I am very much a glass half full
Mhm.
person, and I'm very positive, and I, you know, believe in all that sort of putting good energy and positive, you know, what you put out in the world will come back at you. I really do believe that, and maybe it's easy for me to say that because I do feel like, you know, I don't even know, I still sort of step back outside of myself, and I'm not quite sure how I got to the place that I'm at, you know. I mean, just my trajectory, I was like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
uh, and that also comes with a little bit of, well, a lot of imposter syndrome as well, which I was just talking about this with a couple of my fellow bass playing girlfriends last night. That, you know, we all have it. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what level. It seems like mostly it seems to stick to creatives, but I think just as humans, maybe we're sort of cursed with that, you know, how did I get here? And there's probably somebody that who can do this better than me, and, you know, when will they find out that I really have no idea what I'm doing, and I just feel like I'm faking it, and just they're just like on board with it all, like whatever.
Yes.
But you know, I made that might be a common thing,
I
so
hear it a lot. I sit in the seat
I'm
and I do hear it a lot. And it always is like, I get it because I'm human too. And of course, I've had that feeling of like, do they really know? Like, like why is like the fact that you even want to come and sit and talk to me like blows me away. You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to come and sit and talk to me? But so I think that that's totally normal. How, talking about the stages that you've been on, the maybe you've been on bigger, but I see that video that you've pinned on your Instagram of your birthday on the stage with Kenny Chesney. And I just have to tell you, like of all country people, like he would be the one that I would go see. Like
Yeah.
he's just been in my musical ear for probably the longest, and his music is probably just what I've gravitated to in that genre the longest and the most. So the fact that you were on that stage and you play alongside of him, can you describe what that feeling? Because there's a shot, people, if you go to her Instagram at Harmoni Kelley and you look at the video pinned, I think it's like the center top.
So wild.
Just look at that crowd. That is like Taylor Swift, even maybe bigger, honestly, than an arena. Like, what is that like?
It is it's one of those things that's hard. It's so hard to describe in words because it's such a felt experience, and it's like the feeling of being on that stage and like feeling the energy from the fans that are there, who've come to see Kenny, who continue to come see him again and again. It's like it's a magical, wild, transformative experience. And I had never, I think that before this gig, the biggest crowd that I played in front of maybe was like a festival thing, like a playing with the Scabs at ACL for, just because there's just in general so many people at the festival, and I think they all just kind of, a lot of them landed in front of the stage that we were playing. And so
Yeah.
I don't even know how many people were there. It
Thousands, probably.
thousands,
Yeah.
thousands. It felt like a million, at the
Mhm.
time. And so I didn't really know what to expect. And it's just like in my first year on the road with Kenny, we were doing, it was like an arena tour. And so it was kind of those like, um, 15 to 25,000 people, which is a small venue for him. And so I didn't even, my first year on the road, it blew me away, and the whole thing was just so crazy. My first show was in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena, and we played 2 nights there, and one of them was his birthday.
Oh gosh.
Taylor Swift came out on stage and they sang a song together, and Joe Walsh was there and we played 4 songs with Joe, and then Uncle Cracker showed up, and I was like, is this what happens on any chat? Like, I have no idea what I've just stepped into.
Yeah.
um, and then after that, the next year we did a football stadium tour, which is even,
Mhm.
I mean, that's a whole other experience, because it's like that's the crowds of like 60, 70,000 people, and it's amazing. But it's really cool to be out there, and it's really neat to be out there with people who um really love what they do. And
Mhm.
he loves what he does, and he's really, really good at it, and he's found this way to just over the last 20 something years to find a way to connect with people on a really genuine level.
Yeah.
Even as being as big of a star as he is, it's like he still finds a way for people. And I have people all the time that go, so is he really like the way that he is in person? I'm like, yes, he actually is. He's that guy. He's really, for
Mhm.
a celebrity at that level, he's very down to earth. And yeah, he's really kind and caring, and he's goofy. He's very silly. And he doesn't, a lot of our stage play is kind of this semi improvised, the songs are there, but even within the songs there's stuff that can be,
Aw.
we're let's try something new. And we got a new drummer and a new guitar player last year, so that brought a whole new energy to the whole thing too. So it's really hard to describe.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will, the first time I walked out on stage, and I think the first year we had this big Austrian curtain that was, down. And then the moment, we stepped on stage and started playing, and then the
Mm.
curtain comes up or something. And then that was my first time feeling the audience. And it really takes your breath away, literally, because it's
Yeah.
like, whoa. And I mean, his much like, but Taylor Swift fans, the range of the scream is a little different, but it's
Right.
people just like yelling in excitement that you're there, So, and it's the first time he's ever had a woman in the band, and so his fans are like,
Love that.
"Who's she?" And it's all I have so many women and women with daughters and women with granddaughters who they've been fans of his forever, and they're sort of passing it down through their generations because it's nostalgic, at this point. And they all just, I've got so many messages from women that are like, they don't play instruments, but they're like, it's so cool to see
Yeah.
a woman doing that, what you do. We didn't even know that that was a thing, especially in, the country music arena. That, I mean, it's just really not that common. There's a lot of amazing female background vocalists and fiddle players, and I think that's what people end up thinking is, oh, that's what women do out on
Right.
the road with country bands or just bands in general. I get all the time, people don't know who I am, and they say, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm in a band. And oh, do you sing? I'm
Right.
like, well, I do sing, yes, and thank you for that compliment. And I also play bass, and they're just so like,
Yeah. Like,
oh,
ooh.
that's interesting. I'm like, it's not really that interesting, but for there to be a woman to doing it, but I guess in their mind, it's this really unique
Yeah.
thing.
It's
So
super refreshing to see, because obviously we see men, we could have a whole other episode on that, but it is just so refreshing to see a woman up there, because I mean, all I see is just pure power and like badassery and just like holding your own. Not that should stand out because everyone up there is holding their own, but just I don't know, there's something about it that is just so interesting, so attractive. Like it just attracts the eye. It attracts, I think it probably really pulls the audience more in because it is more interesting to
yeah,
watch. I mean,
yeah,
it just is.
it's different,
Yeah.
and I do like, I think Kenny Chesney is a very, very smart man,
Yes.
in many
Kenny.
different ways. And Kenny, if you're watching, you're
Mhm.
very but he, not that it's like, oh, I want to hire, any female bass player because that would be a cool look, and I auditioned up against I think four or five other people who were all men, and they we played each one of us at different times played with the band. I think we played like 6 songs, and there were background vocals on 3 of the songs, and so we everybody did their thing with the band, and then they recorded it on like an iPhone and sent it to him, and then he chose the person that he wanted to come in and audition again with. And so I got the call a couple of weeks later, like, hey, will you come back in because Kenny wants to, audition with you again. So I
Did
think
you like just pee your pants? Like what was the feeling during that callback?
because I really like, I thought, I was telling my girlfriends this last night, there was every ounce of my body when I went to that audition. After the audition, I was like, well, I blew that gig. Like I'm never getting this gig. And because I went into it, first of all, I was like kind of a newbie in Nashville in terms of, I had moved there for a different reason, a different band scenario that didn't end up panning out, but it was a silver lining kind of deal. And, um, but I was kind of the new kid from Austin coming into Nashville, and I hadn't really played 5-string bass ever, but I'd sort of made this decision that, I wanted to show up for the audition and be able to play 5-string. And I'd never worn in-ear monitors before, which is so standard for everybody in Nashville. It's just what you do, and everybody owns their own pair or multiple pairs. And so I showed up and had this bass that I didn't really know how to play, but I was like, I'm going to fake it through this. And I was going to be singing at the same time. And then our our monitor engineer, I was like, hey, I don't have my own ears. And he was like, that's okay. I have these generics, that you can wear. And they had this, spongy thing on the end, and there was the smallest pair was like way too big for me. And so I would like stick them in my ear, and they just kept like falling out during the audition. And I was like, God, and of course in my mind, it was probably so much more of a disaster than it actually was. And I mean, I got the call to go back in, and that was in 2014. So it's really wild to think about that. Like, God, that's almost been 10 years ago that I auditioned for this band. And, at the time I was just I felt, even though I played for years in Austin and I played with some amazing bands, and I still was very green in terms of that big, touring world at that level, and and it's a very different monster than anything I had ever experienced before. So I've learned so much in the last 10 years, just from being able to be on that stage. And it's fun. It's really, really fun to, I was always just kind of, I'm not a naturally extroverted person. I would say I'm more of an extroverted introvert. I like my friends, and I like going out and seeing bands and all that stuff, but I don't seek out new friends and new I wouldn't go up and talk to strangers and just chit chat, and it's just not really my thing. And so I was always the bass player that is very comfortable standing back by the drummer and just sort of holding it down, and or maybe on the front line but with a vocal mic at times. But then I was just like, I'm here to support what's going on, and singer and the the rest of the band. And this, when I got the gig, our band leader kind of knew the world that I'd come from, and he was like, I'm just gonna let you know that he wants you to, I mean, you're wireless, all the guitar players are wireless, and he wants you to run around and
run around.
that means like, do you want me to like do a David Lee Roth, like jump off of the drum riser, or like what's the deal? I don't know. And so the stage is enormous, so there's a lot of ground to cover. And then we have this on a stadium show. Well, actually on all the shows, it's just different sizes. We have this catwalk, kind of that comes off the stage, and then it goes out into the audience, and at the end there's another thing. And so you go out there and you walk and there's 60,000-70,000 people in the thing. And so it's like, consider it kind of an opportunity to step into these other shoes that before 10 years ago would have felt very uncomfortable for me. But it is fun to I was always in theater, like in middle school and high school, so I did like to act, because it gave me an opportunity to sort of be this other person and maybe be bigger than myself, but have some ask of being, portraying someone else. And that was a safe zone, So this gig is so much like that. The moment that the downbeat happens, it's almost like, now we're on. And then it's just like, you get to become this other person for 2 hours.
And what's her name? Have we named her?
I don't know. It's funny because I have all these nicknames in other bands, and I don't know if that, I don't know if she has a name, but I'll have to think more about that. And
think about that. I'm sure it's going to be a great name. Walk down that catwalk. I can just see you. Oh my gosh. That would be hard. That would be really hard. Like, wait, what a second. You want me to move around? Like, yeah, that'd be a big ask.
It was a very new feeling for me. And but it's so, he's so excited every time we all go out on stage, and there's like love. But I mean, that's the crazy part. It's like everybody on that stage, we all actually like really get along with each other. We love each other. We, the band, we travel on our own bus, and then Kenny either is on his bus or on his plane. And this past year, we've gotten to fly with him on his plane like 5 or 6 times, which is a new thing for me too. So it's really great. And I just got back from Nashville the band with minus Kenny Chesney, the band, we're kind of working on this side project of some original songs that those guys have kind of been co-writing in Nashville, and I'm singing lead on a couple of them, and so we were just in the studio working on those over the last couple months.
Awesome.
So I don't know if we're putting out a record or if it's just Kenny knows that we're kind of working on the side project, and he seemed excited, and he even talked about maybe guest singing one of the cover songs on the record, just as like a made up name, which everyone would know was him once you hear his voice. So
Right.
there's all these little, like, we really enjoy, it's not just like we're on stage and then we get off and it's like, all right, I don't want to talk to you, but we really enjoy hanging out and creating together. And it's really nice. It's kind of, I don't even know, I mean, this is like the best gig in the universe to me.
I know.
All these positives to it, and there's usually you have some trade-offs along the way, like, well, the money's really good, or it's really consistent work, but the people suck and the music's terrible, or what, but I feel like on so many levels, on all the levels, I've just kind of won.
Check. Yeah.
Lots of boxes checked for sure.
That makes me so happy for you. I mean, think back to Little Harmony. Like, could you ever imagine, like,
no way,
crazy balls, how life works out sometimes, And I'm so glad you sound like you're really rooted in the moment and you really understand where you are, even in an incredible out of body arena, like, still you sound like you're very much like where you are. And I've watched you on that stage. You can tell that everybody loves each other. And I think Kenny does a really good job as being like the top of the pyramid of that. I think he really is genuine. I don't know him, but he comes across, and it's so nice to hear that he is that way. But you can feel that you guys love each other,
It definitely is a top down kind of thing. Like it's him cultivating this family. And it's not just the band. It's like I mean, we're on the road with I don't know, 60 something people between the techs, the audio techs, the video crew, the lighting crew, the front of house, the monitors, we're on the road with a lot of people, and we are all family. And it's funny, like, for the most part, everybody in the crew's kind of been with him for 20 years, 15.
I love that.
And so he's very loyal, they're very loyal to him, and it's just a really neat thing. So
makes me so happy. Good. I'm glad you have that. I'm glad you're in like good care.
It's awesome. And then when we're not on tour, like right now, I won't go back to Nashville to rehearse until probably late February or
nice
early March. And so in the meantime, I get to be around town and I get to play with my friends and do sessions. And, it's really, I have this best of both worlds situation, because I love Austin so much. And I mean, I wasn't born here, but my parents moved here in 81.
Oh, wow.
We moved around a couple times, but I went to middle school, high school, and college here in Austin, and I'm from here, and these are my music people and my teachers, and they're all here. And so I feel super lucky to get to kind of have a foot in both of these worlds.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, you are so beloved in this city. And, like I said, I've heard your name come up so many times, and it made me so excited to meet you when I met you. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal for me to have you on. Cause this community is really special, and, the people in it are special. And so it's just nice to, it's nice to get a chance to include you in this, have a chance to talk to you.
That you asked me to come on, and I didn't have all the technical fanfare that I had wanted to have with the camera and the mic and all that stuff. But this is like, that's so like, of course that happens,
Of course.
I mean, it's like, again, we just had this conversation about like how I like to have everything organized, and I like to show up prepared, and I've done my research, and then of course I go to do this podcast with you, and it's like nothing's working.
But the most important, beautiful center is you, and you are working. And so it's perfect. It's all I care about.
All worked out exactly the way that it was supposed to. So
Yeah. Harmony, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you, bumping into you around town. We have a few more months until you have to get back to your other life. But
that's
yeah.
yeah, I'm taking advantage of it too. I feel so lucky to have just been, my friends know that I'm in town, and I get to sub gigs for
Yes.
people like David Jimenez, who I just am such a giant fan of, and that's like so a style of music that I just absolutely love to play.
Amazing. I
I
love
know.
that man. I love his music, and
Great.
um I love the fact that you go watch him play, and I've seen him play 100 times, and every single time I am speechless of what comes out of that man's mouth and how he plays that guitar and how the wonderful players that he has with him. Yeah, he's amazing.
It's one of those shows that you can tell how like the caliber of all the players on stage by the number of musicians who just show up to watch.
Yes, it's where
I
I met you.
found it, I'm like, all my music, my colleagues are all here, and they're all there because they want to just come watch the show and just be kind of in awe of like what's going to happen tonight, and like what's David going to do, and what cool slide solo is he going to play, and like the his whole band is amazing. Like it's so I feel, I was a fan before I was even, I played with him on stage, so I was just,
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to go see him as much
Yeah.
as I can. So
Yeah. Well, now everyone knows where to bump into. Yeah.
yeah,
Continental Club upstairs.
yeah, yes.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode with Harmony Kelley. Harmony, I'm so happy to have you on, and you're gonna have to come back, maybe in 2024 sometime. We'll have you back on.
Great.
All right. Well, that does it. We'll see you next time. And thanks for watching. Bye, guys.